The Senate will come to order. And the good senator from Arapahoe County, District 26, will be fined $5 for not wearing a tie. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bridges. Buckner. Coleman. Cook. Quorum.
Good morning.
Danielson.
Good morning.
Donovan. Finberg. Fields. Gardner. Janal. Gonzalez. Hanson. Heisey. Holbert. Hawkins Lewis. Kirkmeyer. Colker. Lee. Liston. Lundin. Lundin.
Absent.
Moreno. Pedersen. Pedersen. Priola. Rankin. Rodriguez. Scott.
Here.
Simpson. Smallwood. Sonnenberg. Story. Story. Oh, there she is. Winter. Woodward. Senzinger. Zenzinger. Lundin. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, the morning roll call is with 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused. We have a quorum. Would the good senator from Alamosa please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Good morning, everybody. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Buckner.
Mr. President, I move that the reading of the Journal of Thursday, April 29th, 2021 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
April 30th. Correctly printed Senate Bill 251, 252, 253, 254, 255, 256, 257, 258. Correctly revised House Bills 1167, 1241. Correctly enrolled Senate Bill 178.
Committee reports.
April 29th, Committee on Education. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1010 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. April 29th, Committee on Education. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1173 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favor recommendation placed on consent calendar. April 29th, Committee on Education. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1217 be amended as follows. So amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole favor recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 29th, Committee on Education. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1006 be amended as follows. So amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. April 29th, Committee on Education. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1059 be amended as follows. So amended be for the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 29th, Committee on Agricultural and Natural Resources. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 240 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. April 29th, Committee on Agricultural and Natural Resources. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1226 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation with a recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Mr. Panetta, will you please read the titles listed on third reading of bills consent calendar?
House Bill 1241 by Representative Doherty and Lynch and Senators Rodriguez and Priola concerning modifications to employee ownership loan program.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of the one bill on the third reading of bills consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1241.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1241 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. It has to be recorded as a no vote on 1241.
The Minority Leader will be a no vote on 1241. Senator Smallwood.
Good morning, Mr. President. Asked to be recorded as a no vote on the entire third reading of bills consent calendar, including House Bill 1241.
Senator Smallwood will be recorded as a no vote on the third reading's consent calendar. Further discussion. With a vote of 33 ayes, 2 no votes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, House Bill 1241 is passed. Co-sponsors. Third reading bills, final passage. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1164?
House Bill 1164 by Representative Escar and Garnett and Senators Zenzinger and Fenberg concerning reductions in the property tax credits that apply to school districts' total program mill levies for the purpose of funding the Public School Finance Act of 1994.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1164 lay over until May 7th.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and House Bill 1164 will lay over until 5/7/21 and retain its place on the calendar. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1167?
House Bill 1167 by Representative Duran and Will and Senators Gonzalez and Scott concerning retainage and construction contracts governing improvements to private real property.
Senator Gonzalez.
Gracias, Presidente. I move House Bill 1167 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1164. On third reading and final passage, are there any no votes? Excuse me, House Bill 1167. No votes on 1167. Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Liston, Cook, Gardner, Lundin, Heisey, Sonnenberg, Woodward, Priola, Smallwood. With 25 ayes, 10 no votes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, House Bill 1167 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Moreno, Rodriguez, Colker, Buckner, General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Order second reading of bills consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Order second reading of bills consent calendar, and Senator Zenzinger will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on General Orders second reading of bills consent calendar?
House Bill 1139 by Representative McCluskey and Senators Rankin concerning the acquisition of forms of identification from the Department of Revenue in connection therewith facilitating the renewal of driver's license by mail and by electronic means, facilitating the renewal of identification cards by electronic means, facilitating the renewal of driver's license and identification cards by older individuals, and allowing certain individuals to sign a driving log attesting that a minor driver with an instrument permit has completed a minimum number of driving hours. House Bill 1114 by Representative McCormick and Bradfield and Senators Hawkins Lewis concerning the provision of internet service to a school district to enable individuals associated with the district to access a school district network. House Bill 1151 by Representative McLaughlin and Catlin and Senators Quorum concerning allowing a federally recognized Indian tribe to certify its own foster homes. House Bill 1249 by Representative Roberts and Michelson, Janay, and Senators Rodriguez and Smallwood concerning the repeal of a requirement that the state auditor conduct audits of the portion of the limited gaming fund that is transferred to the state historical fund for the preservation of certain gaming cities. House Bill 1222 by Representatives Valdez A. and Van Winkle and Senator Smallwood and Winter concerning aligning local government authority regulations to expand opportunities to access child care and family child care homes. House Bill 1236 by Representative Tone and Baisley and Senators Bridges and Priola concerning the modification of certain statutory provisions to reflect the current state information technology environment. House Bill 1231 by Representative Ortiz and Lynch and Senators Fields and Bridges concerning the United States Space Force and the connection with authorizing the Colorado Space and National Guard and including the United States Space Force and statutory references to the branch of the United States Armed Forces.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes House Bills 1139, 1114, 1151, 1249, 1222, along with the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report, 1236, and 1231.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on general orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. All of those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on general orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. All of those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion for the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had in consideration the following tax bills being the second reading thereof makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1139, 1114, 1151, 1249, 1222 as amended, 1236, 1231 passed on second reading, ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. House Bill 1139, House Bill 1114, House Bill 1151, House Bill 1249, House Bill 1222 as amended, House Bill 1236, and House Bill 1231 passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Zenzinger will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 61 lay over until July 23rd.
The motion before the body is to lay over Senate Bill 61 until July 23rd. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is laid over until July 23rd.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1103 wait for it, to the bottom of the general order, second reading of bills calendar.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1103 to the bottom of the calendar. All of those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over to the bottom of the calendar. Majority Leader Fenberg. Okay. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1186?
House Bill 1186 by Representative Gray and Sullivan, Senators Winter and Bridges, concerning the Regional Transportation District of statutory restrictions related to the district's operations.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the passage of 1186 on second reading.
Is there any discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1186. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1056?
House Bill 1056 by Representative Pelton and Senators Hansen, concerning public projects supervised by the Department of Transportation that are subject to the Construction Bidding for Public Projects Act.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1056 on second reading.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1056. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1132?
House Bill 1132 by Representative Amavali and Baisley and Senator Story, concerning authorized distributions from the Local Government Limited Gaming Impact Fund.
Senator Story.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1132 on second reading.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1132. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1117?
House Bill 1117 by Representative Lantina and Gonzalez Gutierrez and Senators Gonzalez and Rodriguez, concerning the ability of local governments to promote the development of new affordable housing units pursuant to their existing authority to regulate land use within their territorial boundaries.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move House Bill 1117 and the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report.
To the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We offered up an amendment to the bill that clarified its ability to, of the policy to also include concerns around density, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the State Veterans and Military Affairs report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move the bill. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on House Bill 1117? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1117. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1121 lay over until May 7th.
The motion before the body is to lay over House Bill 1121 until May 7th. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over until May 7th. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1212?
House Bill 1212 by Representatives Supper and Escar and Senators Corman Fields, concerning the diversity of members appointed by the government to boards authorized by the General Assembly.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1121 on second reading and passage.
I believe it's House Bill 1212. Would you renew your motion, Senator Fields?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move House Bill 1122 on second reading and passage.
I believe it's 1222? 1212. It's House Bill 1212.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1212 on second reading.
That is a proper motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1016?
House Bill 1016 by Representatives Ortiz and Lynch and Senators Garcia and Gardner concerning the authority to transfer jurisdiction of a veteran defendant's case to a jurisdiction with a veteran specialty court.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1016 on second reading. Members, this is a bill that allows the transfer of jurisdiction of veterans' cases in a jurisdiction that does not have a specialty court to a jurisdiction that does have so after sentencing.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L004?
Amendment L004 to House
Senator
Bill.
Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L004.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Members, this is a technical amendment. The bill is intended to cover both veterans who are discharged and veterans currently serving, and we left the phrase out in a place in the bill. So this adds that back to make clear that currently serving members who are veterans, by definition, will also be covered and be able to transfer jurisdiction of their case with the consent of the district attorney. Ask for an aye vote.
President Garcia.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I also would encourage an aye vote on this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I once again renew my motion along with the Senate President of House Bill 1016 on second reading. Thank you.
The motion before the body is for the adoption of House Bill 1016. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed.
In secondary education created pursuant to House Bill 191110.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1103 and the Education Committee report.
To the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We included an amendment to just make it clear that charter schools do not have to utilize these materials, and I ask for your support.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill that is really just expediting the process of including media literacy in our standards for our school districts. Ultimately, we have a resource bank that includes materials that can be utilized for curriculum, but this does not mandate that they use these materials. This came out of the recommendations for the implementation of a bill that we all brought and passed together to come with recommendations on what we do to address the technology changes and the unfortunate lack of ability to differentiate between what is fiction and what is fact. This is actually not just a United States issue, this is a global issue. I went to a briefing about with people from Israel about this. They see this as one of the greatest threats to their country when it comes to deep fake and all of the technologies in which we're unfortunately, it's really difficult, more and more difficult each day to differentiate between what is real and what is not. And so we need to make sure that we are giving our kids those critical thinking skills, that we are including this in our standards at a grade level appropriate, in a grade level appropriate way, and I ask for your support.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was trying to get attention earlier, but I did have an amendment to the committee report. So I guess we can run that on thirds. I didn't expect the bill to run today, Ted.
No, we can do it.
Senator Quorum, I believe I'm being told that you can do it.
Okay.
We haven't
amendment.
voted yet, and so we are working right now. I believe there will be an amendment on the desk. I'm not sure if it's your amendment, but
023.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to see you, Senator Quorum. I was looking around for you. I move L023 to the committee report.
We have to hold up here and actually have an amendment on the desk first to read.
Yeah.
The Senate will stand in a brief recess. There
You're a what?
I was in a fight with a colleague over here, not this one.
Well, we can go on your amendment because.
Yeah.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L023?
Amendment L023 to House Bill 1103 by Senator Quorum. Amend the Education Committee report dated April 22nd, 2021, page 1, line 5, strike north, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, A and substitute A.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Greatly appreciate it. What
Can you move the
L023 does is strike notwithstanding any law to the contrary. This is a technical revision because there is no law.
Can you move the amendment, please?
I would move L023.
The motion is for the adoption of Amendment L023. Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a friendly amendment. It just clarifies the intent of the bill, and I ask for your support.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment L023. All those in Senator Lundeen.
What?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I was just looking for a little bit more of an explanation after our 10-minute pause there to get this thing drafted up. I'm thinking it might be a little more complicated than just clarifying the intent of the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you. According to the drafter, that was put in by mistake because there is no law.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All it does is clarify that there's nothing in law that requires a school district to adopt this curriculum. So it's just another way of adding that additional clarification there, and ask for your support.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, then that makes me wonder if there is no law, and if we're striking notwithstanding any law to the contrary, why do we even need the committee report? Is there some implication in the bill that the school district, charter school, etc., is required to adopt or implement any material resource from the resource bank into its curriculum? It's kind of curious to me. There must be such strong implications in the bill proper that would require the statement of the Education Committee report. And if that's true, why not just say notwithstanding any law to the contrary? Because I'm not so sure there aren't several laws to the contrary.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment L023. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L022?
Amendment L022 to House Bill 1103.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So in order to discuss this amendment, need to spend a little bit of time on the bill, so I'm looking for a little bit of latitude from the chair to do so. So we haven't really started the discussion on the bill yet, but this is a media literacy bill. We live in a new world where Walter Cronkite, ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS are not the only broadcast channels through which we gather our news. The New York Times, the Washington Post at a national level, maybe the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune at a national level, and our local daily or weekly newspapers are no longer the only place we get information. We have this wonderful thing that is enormous, ubiquitous, and the bill's sponsor has already used the words global in nature, this thing called the internet, where there's information awash everywhere. And so, like from time immemorial, it's up to an individual, up to a human being, up to parents, to training their children, etc., to figure out how to sift through and sort through the information that comes before you. It's just unlike a century ago, or even multiple decades ago. The level of information is much broader. There's more of it. It comes from sources that may or may not correctly be understood and validated. Like we once upon a time, everybody kind of thought Walter Cronkite was the arbiter of truth. If Uncle Walter said it, and for those of my younger colleagues in the chamber, Walter Cronkite was an anchor, a TV anchor for CBS News. He followed Edward R. Murrow, who was an anchor and a newsman for CBS, was kind of the pinnacle of journalism, Edward R. Murrow and then Walter Cronkite. And every evening at 5:30 or 6 or 6:30, depending on your time zone, America would sit down at the national hearth, choosing to watch either NBC, ABC, or CBS. In this case, Walter Cronkite at CBS was the answer. Uncle Walter kind of told us all what was generally accepted as the truth of what was going on in the nation. Not so today. You've got information coming from everywhere. And so this bill arises out of this great plethora of information that comes our way and says, hey, we got to make sense of this. We got to understand this. We've got to, in fact, help people get to truth. And there's where the bill, in my opinion, founders. Whenever we seek to make the state government or the federal government or any government the arbiter of truth, we have wandered far, far afield. We had one member from the media come in and testify before us in the Education Committee, and I put to him, we have the three branches of government, the executive, governor at the state level, president at the federal level, the legislative, the General Assembly at the state level, the Congress at the federal level, and the judiciary, the various judges, including those that run up to the state Supreme Court at the state level and the U.S. Supreme Court at the federal level. But we also have the fourth estate. The fourth estate is the media, the newspapers, TV, broadcast, radio, and other media sources who are supposed to hold government accountable. So that fourth estate, whose job it is to hold government accountable, I asked this member, former member of the media, which I am also a former member of the media.
And this is
I asked,
eventually
well,
getting
wouldn't
to
it
the
make
amendment,
more
correct?
sense?
And we're getting to the amendment.
We are getting to the amendment because this amendment is about the resource bank, which is what the bill is all about, and the bill is all about trying to discern what's going on. So I asked this member of the media, former member of the media, wouldn't it possibly be a better place, rather than having government establish and establish itself as the arbiter of truth, wouldn't it perhaps be better to have the media, and maybe even make it the conventional media as opposed to the alternative media that has risen up? Make the media the arbiter of truth? And the answer was, that's a great question. I don't think so. I'm not comfortable with state being the arbiter of truth or the media being the arbiter of truth. And so then the question arises, well, perhaps it's some other element of society that should be the arbiter of truth. So all of this is framing to set up this particular amendment. What this amendment essentially does, because I object to the idea that we would have government say, you know what, we have found truth, we have seen the light, we know the information that should be put into a resource bank. No, it's not the Library of Congress. No, it's not even your local library in your community. It's not the state library. It's not the library you have at home. It is what we, the government, define as the elements necessary to understand the truth. We, the government, will create a resource bank. So this amendment to House Bill 1103, Amendment L022, and I always get nervous when you get into double digits, and we're headed into the mid-double digits on amendments. I always kind of get concerned that, oh my gosh, we're working that hard to save this thing. We may have headed down the wrong path, and it might be better for us just to turn around and walk back rather than trying to adjust, amend, and fix this, which may not be fixable. Amendment L002, in the language of drafters, and I could walk through the re-engrossed bill with you, or the committee report and the re-engrossed bill, to help you understand, but just, if you would, stipulate to this, it just strikes the resource bank. It takes the resource bank out. It says, yeah, putting the information together, giving it the imprimatur, the seal of approval of the state, is not the right way to approach this. As we're in challenging and encouraging our children to seek truth, we don't put in front of them, here's the information that is necessary for you to understand truth, or that will lead you to the truth. So this amendment, L022, would strike the resource bank out of the bill. Now, the bill sponsors are going to say to you, fairly so, well, that kind of guts the bill. Well, it does, in a very meaningful way, change the bill. And I think that's what's necessary. Because for the state to be the arbiter of truth, for the state to set itself up and say, look, we're the only one that can tell you, child, student, how to figure out, to discern the truth, we have fallen down, and then gotten back up because you can't walk away from your true job. And I do not think it is the job of the state to tell people, we have found the truth, you should see the truth, see it from our perspective. I urge your support of L022. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is only optional if school districts actually want to utilize this resource bank. This is an independent group that we set up here in the legislature to actually look at recommendations and come up with these resources for grade-specific information. This is made up of an academic expert in media literacy, a teacher in a rural school district or a small school district who holds an initial or professional teacher's license. I can go through the list if you all want me to, a librarian, a school administrator. These are people who are actually in these roles that have an idea of what we need to do to provide resources for our teachers who already have plenty on their plate if they would like to utilize it. These are experts in the field. We have a representative from a nonprofit organization specializing in media literacy, another representative, a nonprofit organization specializing in journalism. So how do we teach our kids to think critically about the information that is inundating them every day? I was pretty startled to see a statistic here that on average, kids that are under 18 years old are on social media for almost 8 hours a day. And unfortunately, this is where they are getting a lot of their information. And there is a ton that is not accurate. It's incredibly misleading. And the technology is changing every day. So we need to make sure that we're actually updating our standards so that we aren't teaching, that we are not including these critical pieces that are more and more important every day. So these are just resources that they can use. These are experts that are doing this work, who can advise teachers who are trying to figure out the best way to discuss this and exercises to use, but it is not mandatory. So this is not a friendly amendment, and I ask for your no vote.
The motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L02. Oh, I apologize. Senator Lundin has more to say on the amendment.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, as the sponsor and author of this amendment, I do have more to say. So you've just heard an argument against my amendment. I love debate, give and take, parry and thrust, idea and counter idea. The idea that said you don't need this amendment was, well, it's optional. The districts can do what they want to do. So I will call you to consider human nature, inescapable. The human nature that we're looking at right here is educators in our public education apparatus who are being called to help your students work their way through this. And we have provided for you a simple repository of all the information you will need. Okay, so we're making a difficult job simple for someone. Now, look deep inside yourself when I ask you this question. Who would not, when presented from a credible source, a source with great authority, who would not say, well, okay, if they've done the homework for me, who likes homework? Let's start with that question. Who in here likes homework? Nobody likes homework. We've got a couple overachievers that like homework. The reality is nobody likes homework. Why? I don't want to do more work. If somebody, a source that has authority, like the state government, for heaven's sakes, says, here's the answer, who would not say, okay, that human nature being human nature, that makes my job easier. I'm just going to take that information, I'm going to run with that. And all of a sudden, this concern we have over a diversity of thought, an incredible diversity of thought brought to you from across the globe, but inherent and incumbent upon you with that diversity of thought is the responsibility to think through it, sort through it, use logic perhaps, maybe check a second source perhaps. That is all relieved. You don't have to do that work because the government is here to help you. They're here to give you a resource bank that says, here's the answers, here's all you need to know. Second element of human nature. These educators, these folks in the public education space are under pressure from parents, from us, for heaven's sakes, policymakers. And we're saying, hey, you got to help kids sort this out. They're spending, in the data I've seen, adults spend about 4 hours and 46 minutes a day on their smart device. Think about that. We, the folks in this chamber, spend more than almost 5 hours on our smart device every day, looking at stuff, email, gathering information, et cetera. Students spend potentially more. So there's pressure on these individuals to help us manage this situation. So you got two elements of human nature. Folks under pressure, needing to help resolve a matter, and government saying, we've got the solution for you, use this solution. I'm here to tell you, human nature, being what it is, the diversity of thought, the application of logic and training to think clearly, will fall aside, and the simple answer is just go to the resource bank. It'll give you A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. As we perceive you should manage this issue, and that's the critical breakdown, the opposition to the bill is rooted in that. As we, the state of Colorado, are telling you how to manage this issue, that will be what happens. So even though the argument was it's optional, acknowledge it is optional under the bill, but human nature being what human nature is, it will become universal. When I was over on the State Board of Education, we used to develop what was called model curricula, model process. And I objected to that. I said, let's back up. Let's at least label it and name it sample. It's not the model, because when we hand to the K-12 education apparatus something and say, here's the model, well, they're going to take it as the ideal. It's been developed for us. It's the model. It's what we're supposed to do. No, it's only a sample in an effort to combat this force of human nature that drives people to just do the simple thing that has been put in front of them. I urge you to support Amendment L022. Let's get rid of the resource bank. Let's do the hard work that we need to do to bring a society with a diversity of thought, a number of perspectives, into coherence by virtue of the hard work we do and the way we speak positively into each other's lives, as opposed to having the state government say, here's the path, follow the path, take the path. I urge your support for Amendment L022.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L022. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is lost. Senator Coram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand the concern that we have because there is a conspiracy theory around every corner, and frankly, our young people are not given the tools to decide what is correct. You know, I've witnessed in my 11 years. I've even at the well. I've heard theories. So I think the goal here is to educate the children so they know how to find the truth. I think there's far more than a media bank that is necessary here. And I also have Amendment L024. And I would move L024.
We can't move it yet because it's not yet been placed on the desk.
Okay.
So we will take a senatorial 5. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L024?
Amendment L024.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L024. I think what I'm trying to address is there are situations in educating our children where indoctrination seems to be more than education. As an example, a 90-year-old Korean War veteran wearing his MAGA hat, his grandson, great-grandson comes in, and he suffers from a degree of autism, and he totally had a meltdown. Because get that hat off, that man is evil. That man is evil. Where did you hear this? My teacher. So I'm concerned that we're not getting all sides of the story, and to a degree, I understand the good senator from Monument's concerns about just the media bank. But we have to have all the tools, but we have to have both sides of the story in that toolbox. And so L024, amend re-engrossed bill, page 2, strike line 7, and substitute context, think critically about the information they are presented and to be free from indoctrination.
Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think that this changes the intent of the bill, and so I am fine with this amendment and ask for your support.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate this amendment a lot. It seeks to get at a lot of the core heartburn that I have with the bill. The challenge is when we try and set up who is to determine what is and is not the acceptable piece, making it free from indoctrination is a laudable goal. That's exactly what we would want to do. The challenge is, as you create this resource bank, who's the arbiter of indoctrination or not? That becomes the challenge. Once upon a time, we had libraries. Wait, we still have libraries where you can go read a book, settle down with a classic or two, see what the human condition has looked like over this broad sweep of our existence as a species. There are opportunities to do that. So the core objection I have to this as not resolving the matter is who's minding the minders becomes the question. It's an endless loop. It's like standing in front of a mirror with a mirror behind you and you're seeing this endless loop of who's minding the minders. At the end of the day, who would be in control of that which we seek to find out. So I appreciate deeply the desire to avoid indoctrination because that, colleagues, is quite frankly a risk of creating a state-driven database or state-driven resource bank that I'm trying to get at. But this question of it's essentially saying this database shall be ideal, perfect. It shall be the ultimate. It shall be free from the difficulties and challenges that are inherently going to potentially be there. It just won't be able to deliver on its desire, but I certainly appreciate the intention behind the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment L024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Minority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have been torn on this bill because I've run similar legislation. A few years ago, I sponsored a bill to create a resource bank, a library, information over at the Colorado Department of Education so that schools, school districts, district charter schools, institute charter schools that wanted to could help students learn about the risks of use of marijuana. And that was a challenge for me. I wasn't sure I wanted to run that bill, but I did. And the reason I wasn't sure I wanted to run the bill is Article 9, Section 15 of the state constitution. It says that our responsibility here in this building, which by the way was completed I think in 1876, the General Assembly shall by law provide for organization of school districts of convenient size, in each of which shall be established a Board of Education to consist of 3 or more directors to be elected by the qualified electors of the district. Said directors shall have control of instruction in the public schools of their respective districts. Right there are the words that make us a local control state when it comes to public K through 12 education. We do not control instruction in our public schools. We, the legislature, we, the governor, or he, the governor, doesn't do that either. CDE does not have a position on the governor's cabinet because CDE doesn't report to the governor. They report to an elected state board of education. So I struggled on that prior legislation because, gosh, I didn't want to dictate to any school district, school board, their definition, their inclusion or exclusion of instruction. But I decided to make that, I decided to sponsor that bill and make those materials available to the schools that wanted to teach kids about the risks of marijuana. Some people said, thank you for sponsoring this bill and making this a required part of the curriculum for every student in Colorado. And if anybody said that, nope, that's not what it was. In some states, legislatures can do that. In this state, the legislature can't do that. So I want to be consistent. I don't want to say it's wrong to create such a resource over at CDE. But on this one, I really struggle, and I appreciate the words of my friend from El Paso County, the ranking member of education. On this one, I'm really struggling because I go to the more important Constitution. I quoted from the state Constitution earlier, but there's this thing called the First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. Congress, we're not Congress, we're a state legislature, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech. Those words are in our U.S. Constitution not to defend polite speech. Those words don't need to be there to defend speech that we might all agree with. Those words are there to defend speech that we might disagree with. And is that an absolute right? No, we use the example of yelling fire in a crowded theater. That puts people in danger, and there might be some limitations. But the goal of teaching our kids to be media literate, to ask what's true, is this true? What do I think about this? I think that's a great goal. And as a parent, as parents, my wife and I have taken that goal very seriously. If you want to meet 2 rather conservative, questioning young men, come meet my sons. They've given up on social media. I think one altogether, the other one might have one account on one platform. Because of this. Because there's so much outrage. There's so much that isn't true. There's so much that persuades people to take a position on things today that simply isn't true. So to be questioning, to be doubtful, to be skeptical, to ask what is true, is this true? I like that about this bill. But what I don't like about this bill is I don't think that's the responsibility of any classroom teacher that my sons ever had. I don't think that was the responsibility of their principals or vice principals or sports coaches. I don't think that was the responsibility of their state legislators, even though one of them happens to be their dad. I think it's the responsibility of their dad. It's not my responsibility because of this name badge to train my sons that way, to help them be skeptical. It's the name badge that I have, Dad. So I don't want to disparage the sponsors. I understand what they're trying to do here. But I think based on the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, abridging speech, that's exactly what this would seek to do. Not take freedom of speech away from people, but abridging. Remember the unabridged dictionary, the really big one, the Bridge dictionary? That just gives you, the words that are common, the words that you're most likely to use. Abridging speech in this way, you're going to be looking at what students should embrace and what they shouldn't, to help them learn that. And I fully embrace that as the responsibility of parents, but I ask you members, let's not put that responsibility in the hands of our teachers. Ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fake news! Fake news. Or is it? I appreciate the motivation of this bill and the sponsors. I think it is well-intentioned. But the problem is this. Public school is government. Something I learned as a first grader. We didn't have kindergarten when I grew up. You had it, you had to pay for it. I was spared government until I was 6. And then I learned very quickly about the long arm of government and the lack of due process in elementary school. People say that people often become lawyers because they felt unjustly treated as a child. Well, I'm probably living proof of that. Because what I found in my encounters with government was that it can be arbitrary and it has a viewpoint. It has a viewpoint. How many here would have to concede that they believe that government has been grossly wrong about something in their lifetime? Yeah. And we do need to teach our children to think critically. Believe me, no one thinks that more than simple country lawyers. No one wants to teach their children to think critically more than simple country lawyers, but also all sorts of parents. Now, you might, when you teach them to do that, I learned very quickly, you might rue the day you taught them that, because they might start asking you questions, and because I said so doesn't work anymore. Media literacy is important, but who defines fake news? You know, I heard the president announce the other night massive programs to bring our economy back from the pandemic, and on the front page of the Wall Street Journal it says, U.S. economy bounces back near its peak. Consumers' lead bursts of activity bring nation within 1% of the level reached pre-pandemic. And then I heard a speech that said we need to spend trillions of dollars to somehow bring our economy back post-pandemic. Which one of those is right? I'll let you decide when you think critically. But I don't think that any media literacy center in my child's school will accomplish that. In fact, it scares me to death. And again, let me say, I think the sponsors are very well intentioned, but it scares me to death. I stand before you as someone who 30 years ago was a founder of a charter school. Founded a charter school in one of the very best districts in the state of Colorado in terms of its performance. And when I did so, the superintendent of that district, the then superintendent of that district, said, "Bob, you know, you seem like a really intelligent, reasonable guy. Our district does the best performance of practically any other school in the state. Why would you want to form a charter school in our state? We do so well at what we're doing." And I looked at him and I said, "Because I don't agree with what you do." That charter school was founded out of a textbook fight. Founded out of a textbook fight by a group of parents who said, "I don't want a social studies textbook that teaches my children that they need to apologize for what their grandparents did to win World War II." And a group of educators, fine people I'm sure, who wanted to adopt what I consider to be revisionist history about America's role in World War II. Do I think, you know, I'm a great student of the history of the middle 20th century, having lived it, my parents having lived it, and one ought to think critically about it. But whatever public schools do, well, any other institution does. It fosters, it promotes, it inculcates its own point of view. It is the nature of institutions. And so, while the goal of critical thought, literacy, to read the very different coverage on the Denver Post, Colorado Springs, the Gazette, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, not to mention all of the social media out there. Our children need to learn that, but they need to learn that free of the viewpoint, because in these newspapers, I read all of them, not cover to cover, try to read the comics every day, get a laugh out of something. There are articles there about totalitarian systems that control public education. And they say that everything that we teach in our schools is fake news. They don't use that term, but they call it something else. As my friend and colleague from Monument says, what this bill does is make government schools the arbiter of what is true, what can be trusted, what is the news. If I had any confidence that that would be done in a neutral, conscientious fashion, I wouldn't be scared to death. But everything I know from life experience tells me that no government is an honest arbiter. I don't mean that government is on a path to be dishonest. I just mean that government, by its nature, seeks to preserve and expand itself and promote its own point of view. So, early on, the pandemic is probably a very good case study of all of this. Just some things that come to mind.
Senator Gardner, if we're talking about the pandemic, can we make sure that we connect it to the bill?
Well, thank you. I am trying to demonstrate, Madam Chair, why it is that having a government institution teach media literacy is dangerous. So, at the beginning of the pandemic, Dr. Fauci says, don't need a mask. So if people were saying, wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask, well, people weren't being critical because Dr. Fauci said, didn't need to wear a mask. Now, and shortly after that, the truth, in quotes, the truth that everyone was to subscribe to was, you need to wear a mask. Oh, even better, I know media literacy is going to say, listen to the science. Favorite phrase of those who want to filter out what they'd like to call fake news. Listen to the science. Well, what scientists don't like to say is you can probably find some science to support most anything. The science long ago, some science, not all of it by any means, some science said, I don't need to wear one of these. For a long time, the science has said, I don't need to wear one of those out there in the open air, and yet that's what the government has said. Do you think that your media literacy center is going to teach children to say, I don't know that I have to wear a mask, teacher? Do not be confused that somehow media literacy centers run by government schools and a Department of Education that is a government institution is going to be teaching children to challenge the authority of government, to challenge the orthodoxy, to challenge accepted wisdom. Now, let me tell you from personal experience, it's a really challenging proposition to teach your children to challenge accepted wisdom whenever you want to tell them because I said so, because they may, when they get to be about 12 or 13 or 14, say, but I need a better reason than that, Dad. And part of you will smile as you're exasperated. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll say, well, that's what I taught him to do. But you know, government will not do that. Media literacy will become media orthodoxy. And you say, well, but this is America. You know, we can trust our government institutions. Well, the framers of the Constitution didn't trust our government institutions. That was the debate. That is the debate that continues today. That is the debate that comes before the United States Supreme Court and the U.S. Congress and the Colorado State Senate on a daily basis. How much should we trust a government institution? I suggest to you, I implore you, do not place the trust in a government institution, a media literacy center, to decide what is the truth. I didn't know the truth was relative till I got to school. This will be nothing more than an arbiter of orthodoxy, arbiter of what is true versus what is not true. I implore the sponsors to think deeply, if you are concerned about critical thinking and media literacy, to think deeply that this is not the answer. Having government decide is not the answer. I urge a no vote.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to continue to think this through. There's a couple other issues that we haven't really gotten to that I think are relevant to the conversation and relevant, quite frankly, to the fate of the legislation. The bill essentially duplicates a function that is normally performed by school librarians. It does that by empowering essentially the state government, an apparatus of the Department of Education, to create what is and is not acceptable curricula. So in this sense, the bill allows the department or causes the department to enact what's essentially a common curricula across the state with regard to media literacy. That is a clear infringement of the most fundamental element. We use the phrase local control down here all the time, especially when we're talking about schools. The driver on that local control conversation was originally around curriculum. What will be taught to my child? At one point, the state had 3,000 school districts because the neighborhoods were more discrete, they were smaller, we weren't as connected. We now still have an enormous diversity of districts, 178 districts. And it is so, part of the reason why it exists in statute, in practice, this way, this idea of local control, especially local control over the curriculum, is it's so much easier for parents to go to the Thursday evening school board meeting in their neighborhood than it is for them to come up here to Denver and testify on a bill. Or, heaven forbid, have to go to Washington, D.C. and try and figure out how to navigate that level of government intrusion into our lives. So this idea about what's going into my child's brain, is it in alignment with my family's values, my neighborhood's values, my community's values, my state's values, quite frankly, is in fact traditionally the choice of local school districts, local school boards, elected school boards, people elected by the people. And we're heard and passed out of here a bill that provides additional support to those local school board members as an indication, argued by the other side of the aisle, of how important it is to give those people authority, to keep those people engaged and in the process. Well, this just goes right the other direction. This says, you know what? We're going to take away from those folks authority over a piece of curriculum. So I would say, quite frankly, there's a question, is it even constitutional? Now, if we pass it, we're saying it's constitutional right up until somebody files a suit and the suit goes to the court and the court determines is it constitutional or not. So we have the authority to say it's constitutional, but I'm questioning that. I don't know that it is constitutional to create a statewide curriculum with regard to media literacy, point one. Point two, this may be the most important element that we haven't talked about yet. According to the Colorado Measures of Academic Success, that's the summative end of course test that the students take, more than half of the students in Colorado in grades 3 through 8 did not meet grade level expectations in reading, writing, or math. You did not feel the foundation of this building shake, but you should have. More than half of the students in Colorado, grades 3 through 8, do not meet grade level expectations in reading, writing, or math. That is where we should be focused, not on creating some sort of a chasing after this chimera of a current idea that we think is so important, management of social media, our engagement. We should be focusing on the fundamentals in our K-12 environment and getting that right. I'd say you've got an honest argument if you can produce a positive result for 80 or 90% of the students in Colorado. If 80 or 90% of the students, grades 3 through 8, were reading at or above grade level, doing writing at or above grade level, doing math at, or then I'd say fine. We've clearly got something that is able to speak into those students' lives in an effective way. But to shift our focus off the core mission and say, let's chase after this shiny object that's really big in the news right now, a mistake, in my opinion. Another element here that is kind of an echo of the previous argument, but this is a statewide mandate where we're simply saying, you know what, the hard work that the local librarians, that the local media resource officers, that the local folks who work in their local school districts, the hard work they're doing, we're going to push it aside. We don't trust them. We don't think they're up to it. We don't want them to have authority. It's a mandate that intrudes on what they're doing. So, obviously, my perspective is this would be a mistake. I think the biggest mistake that's inherent in this is its affront to diversity of thought. It simply says, we don't think you can figure it out, so we're going to narrow the information you have, student, teacher, resource person in the school district. We're going to put it in a box for you. It's education on this subject in a box because you can't figure out how to do it on your own. I think that is a mistake, because diversity of thought is where you get the best of who we are as a people. Diversity of thought is where you get the best of what we will become as scientists and engineers. You've got to let people think and move forward and bring their creativity to the equation. If we're concerned about students' ability to handle media literacy, I would say, and if we're going to actually mandate something, I would say, how about we mandate in the 5th grade and repeat it again in the 7th grade, an elementary logic class. Actually teach students to identify what is a true truth statement, a false truth statement, what is a syllogism, how do things connect together, how do I think? Truly think, not here's a resource bank, we're going to tell you what to think and call it critical thinking. How about we actually dive into logic and make that something that we focus on? So I urge your opposition to 1103. I think it takes us down a bad pathway. It distracts us from the core mission of our public education system. And it is an affront to the idea that thought can be diverse. And from many thoughts can come one coherent society. E pluribus unum, it's on your dollar bill, it's who we are as a country. I would argue this bill is an affront to that basic concept. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1103. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All of those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will rise and report. Rest your beats. It's all about timing.
The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please excuse Senator Donovan? Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report as had in consideration the following task bills being the second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1186, House Bill 1056, 1132, 1117 as amended, 1212, 1016 as amended, 1103 as amended, passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading, final passage. House Bill 1121 laid over until May 7th, and retained its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 61 laid over until July 23rd.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the report.
Motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment 001 to the committee of the whole report?
Amendment 001 to Committee of the Whole report. Senator Lundin moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to show the following Lundin Amendment L022 to House Bill 211103 did pass.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciated your attention to the debate, Mr. President. I certainly did.
Senator, will you please move the amendment?
Now that I've tried to ingratiate myself with the chair, the president in the chair of the Senate, I will move, and I do move, herewith, forthwith, and with my full-throated voice, which can be a little bit obnoxious at times, Amendment 001 to the Committee of the Whole report.
To the amendment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we've got a word picture right in front of us right now of what we just have been discussing. There was a narrow moment, we could call it a resource bank, where all sorts of potentialities were brought together into one narrow little box, a teeny tiny box. When the chair called the question on House Bill 1103, some folks said aye, and other folks said no. But prior to that, and it seemed that was kind of a mixed bag. You couldn't really tell. But prior to that, there was an amendment that we all heard, and we debated, I think, vigorously, Amendment L022. And when the chair, that resource bank, called the question, all those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes were clearly louder than were the noes. But the resource bank, the chair, heard it the way they heard it. Now, and this is the problem with the resource bank, may have been right, may have been wrong, we don't know, but it was the perspective of a very narrow perspective. Now we're going to do what should happen, and quite frankly, House Bill 1103 would contradict, and that is hear a diversity of thoughts. Get it clear. Let's let all the libraries from across the state of Colorado participate. Let's let all the voices of the people of Colorado participate. Let's think through all the ideas that could be, as opposed to just seeing what's in the box. And we've got the metaphor for that now is we're all going to vote and it's going to be clear. So now 35 individuals, it will be made clear, not just the perspective of one. So that was a really long explanation. Thanks for the forbearance, Mr. President. This amendment simply says that when we all paused after the debate and thought about it, we realized that we supported the idea of diversity of thought, and we didn't like the idea of a narrow resource bank controlling it all, and in fact, that is the way we voted. We voted to remove the resource bank from the bill, and that was the will of the General Assembly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion, Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the chair heard loud and clear from the body on this particular amendment, and what the chair heard overwhelmingly and with perfect pitch and resonation through the chair's ears, a very clear no on that prior discussion, and so therefore I ask for another very clear no. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of Amendment 001 to the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Akis Lewis, Janal, Bridges, Coleman, Hansen, Gonzalez, Story, Winter, Danielson, Moreno, Pedersen, Lee, Buckner, Kolker, Fields, Rodriguez, Zenzinger. The majority leader. Please add the president. Please add Senator Quorum. With 14 aye votes, 20 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Amendment 001 is lost. The question before the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senator Lundin. With 33 aye votes, 1 no vote, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. House Bill 1186, House Bill 1056, House Bill 1132, House Bill 1117 as amended, House Bill 1212, House Bill 1016 as amended, House Bill 1103 as amended. Passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1121 later over until 5/7/21 and retaining its place on the calendar. House Bill 061 later over until 7/23/21 and retaining its place on the calendar. Committee reports.
April 29th, Committee on Local Government, after consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 229 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation. April 29, Mr. President, Committee on Agricultural and Natural Resources had in consideration, had a hearing on the following appointments. Recommends appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirm members of Colorado State Fair Authority Board of Commissioners for terms expiring November 1st, 2024. Aaron Mikulski of Breckenridge, Colorado, and unaffiliated from the Western Slope in the 2nd Congressional District and a member with substantial experience in agriculture and the activities of 4-H clubs, appointed Nicole Weathers of Yuma, Colorado, a Republican for the 4th Congressional District and a member with substantial experience in agriculture and the activities of 4-H clubs, appointed. April 29th, Mr. President, the Committee on Agricultural and Natural Resources had in consideration, had a hearing on the following appointments. Recommends appointments be placed in the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of Colorado State Fair Authority Board of Commissioners effective immediately for a term expiring November 1st, 2021. Jeffrey Manders of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and unaffiliated from the 5th Congressional District and a certified public accountant appointed effective immediately for terms expiring November 1st, 2023. Brian Coiler Copham of Longman, Colorado, and unaffiliated from the 4th Congressional District reappointed. April 29th, Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources had in consideration, had a hearing on the following appointments. Recommends appointments be confirmed. Members of Colorado State Fair Authority Board of Commissioners effective immediately for terms expiring November 1st, 2023. Miguel Baca Barragan of Denver, Colorado, Democrat from 1st Congressional District reappointed. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration on the merits, committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 18 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 32 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 63 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 95 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 106 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 118 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 185 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 202 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 203 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 204 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 231 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 232 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1011 be referred favorable to the Committee on Legislative Counsel. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 16 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 27. Senate Bill 27 be amended as follows, and so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 69 be referred as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 71 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 108 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 137 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 148 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 175 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 181 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 230 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation.
Consideration.
April 30th, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 243 be amended as follows. So amended, be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services with favorable recommendation.
Consideration of governor's appointments. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the University of Colorado Hospital Authority Board of Directors, April Jones from the 6th Congressional District for term effective May 1st, 2020, and continuing until April 30, 2024, until a successor is appointed by the Board of Regents or reappointed. Laney P. Minnick from 1st Congressional District for term effective December 1st, 2020, and continuing until November 30, 2024, until a successor is appointed by the Board of Regents appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments listed on the consent calendar, which includes members of the University of Colorado Hospital Authority Board of Directors.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is a confirmation of all the appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes on the appointments listed on the consent calendar? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, all of those appointments are confirmed. Consideration of conference committee reports. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 135?
Senate Bill 135 by Senators Janal and Zenzinger and Representative Duran and Froelich concerning a prohibition on the use of certain animals in a traveling animal act.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adopt the first report of the first conference committee on Senate Bill 135.
Is there any discussion?
Members, we signed off on this conference report unanimously. I think we came to a good place of making the bill crystal clear that it did not apply to rodeos, and we in fact created a definition of rodeo for our statutes for this purpose, so that there are no unintended consequences. And I was very grateful to the senator from Sterling for providing his input on that definition, and I'm sure that he may want to speak further about that.
Further discussion. Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would indeed urge a yes vote on the conference committee report. It does indeed make it very clear that rodeos are exempt, and I appreciate the sponsors for allowing that to be able to be added. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the first report on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 135. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the first report on the first conference committee of Senate Bill 135 is adopted. Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for the repassage of Senate Bill 135.
Seeing no further discussion, Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will indeed be brief. Even though the conference committee did good work, I am still asking for a no vote on this bill. I know it comes to as a shock to you. I don't think it's necessary. I would ask you that until we prohibit the circus that goes on in here, we vote no on the bill.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the repassage of Senate Bill 135. Are there any no votes? Senators Gardner, Lundeen, Quorum, Scott, Simpson, Liston, Cook, Heisey, Kirkmeyer, Woodward, Rankin, Priola, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Correction. Strike Senator Priola as a no vote. Senator Priola will be recorded as a yes vote on Senate Bill 135. No votes. With 20 aye votes, 14 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 135 is repassed. Co-sponsors.
For the elephants, people.
Message from the House.
April 30th, Mr. President, the House has adopted the first report of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 205 as printed in the House Journal April 30th and has repassed the bill as so amended. The bill is returned herewith.
Message from the governor.
April 29th, Colorado Senate. Honorable members of the Colorado Senate, pursuant to the authority vested in the office of the Governor of the State of Colorado, I have the honor to inform you that I have approved and filed with the Secretary of State the following acts. Senate Bill 66, Juvenile Diversion Programs, approved on Thursday, April 29th at 12:09 p.m. Senate Bill 79, Deregulate Meat Sales Direct to Customers, approved on Thursday, April 29th at 12:25 p.m. Senate Bill 130, Local Authority for Business Personal Property Tax Exemption, approved on Thursday, April 29th at 12:35 p.m. Senate Bill 144, Sunset Homeland Security and All Hazards Advisory Committee, approved on Thursday, April 29th at 12:15. Senate Bill 224, Capital-Related Transfers of Money, approved on Thursday, April 29th at 12:15 p.m. Senate Bill 225, Repay Cash Funds for 2020 Transfers, approved on Thursday, April 29th, 12:15 p.m. Senate Bill 227, State Emergency Reserve, approved on Thursday, April 29th, 12:15 p.m. Sincerely, Jared Polis, Governor.
Delivery to the governor.
April 30th to the Governor for signature on Friday, April 30th at 9 o'clock a.m. Senate Bill 6 and 152.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up Senate Bills 32, 63, 95, 106, 118, 185, 202, 203, 204, 231, and 232 on special orders consent calendar at the hour of 11:02 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up the following bills listed under the special orders second reading of bills consent calendar, which included the following at the hour of 11:02. This requires a 2/3 majority vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and the Senate will take up special order second reading of bills consent calendar at the hour of 11:02. Special order second reading of bills consent calendar. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of Whole for consideration of special order second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Zenzinger will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on special order second reading of bills consent calendar?
Senate Bill 32 by Senators Donovan and Representative Ortiz concerning establishing a mobile veteran support unit grant program. Senate Bill 63 by Senator Sonnenberg and Representative Hooton and Pelton concerning an expansion of the ability of an existing association consisting of multiple employers to offer health care benefits to the members of the association. Senate Bill 95 by Senators Danielson and Representative Ricks concerning the continuation of the Employment First Advisory Partnership and in connection therewith implementing the recommendation contained in the 2020 census report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Senate Bill 106 by Senators Coleman and Priola and Representative McLaughlin and Baisley concerning measures to improve successful transitions from high school to post-high school training. Senate Bill 118 by Senators Janal and Gardner and Representative Pelton and Snyder concerning the creation of an alternative response pilot program for county departments of human or social services to address a risk report of mistreatment of an at-risk adult. Senate Bill 185 by Senators Zenzinger and Rankin and Representative McLaughlin and McCluskey concerning supporting the educated workforce in Colorado. Senate Bill 202 by Senators Moreno and Landine and Representative Sirota and Larson concerning a general fund transfer to the Public School Capital Construction Assistance Fund for the purpose of providing grants for the public school air quality improvement projects and in connection with making an appropriation. Senate Bill 203 by Senators Bridges and Simpson, Representative Valdez D. and Pelton concerning an appropriation to the Department of Agriculture for the Colorado Proud Program. Senate Bill 204 by Senators Donovan and Rankin and Representatives Young and Van Beber concerning the appropriation to the Department of Local Affairs for the Rural Economic Department Initiative Grant Program. Senate Bill 231 by Senator Story and Heisey and Representative Hooton and Wiseman concerning a transfer of money from the General Fund to the Energy Fund to finance the weatherization assistance program of the Colorado Energy Office. Senate Bill 232 by Senators Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer and Representative Kipp and Byrd concerning an appropriation to the Department of Higher Education for the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship Initiative Displaced Workers Grant.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes Senate Bills 32, along with the Appropriations Committee report, 63, along with the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report, 95, along with the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report, Senate Bill 106, along with the Education Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 118, along with the Health and Human Services Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 185, along with the Education Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 202, 203, 204, along with the Appropriations Committee report, and Senate Bills 231 and 232.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All of those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on second reading special orders consent calendar? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had in consideration the following tax bills being the second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bills 32 as amended, 63 as amended, 95 as amended, 106 as amended, 118 as amended, 185 as amended, 202, 203, 204 as amended, 231 and 232. Passed on second reading and order engrossed and placed in the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 032 is amended. Senate Bill 063 is amended. Senate Bill 095 is amended. Senate Bill 106 is amended. Senate Bill 118 is amended. Senate Bill 185 is amended. Senate Bill 202, Senate Bill 203, Senate Bill 204 is amended. Senate Bill 231, Senate Bill 232 passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Change in sponsorship. The following change in bill sponsorship will occur. Senator Fields will be added as a Senate co-prime sponsor along with Senator Sonnenberg on Senate Bill 063.
Did you already read the message?
Yes.
Conference committees to report.
I'm sorry. First report of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 205. The report amends the re-engrossed bill to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on Senate Bill 205 concerning the provision for payment of the expense of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of agencies and institutions formed during fiscal years July 1st, 2020, when except as otherwise noticed, has met and reports as agreed upon the following. 1, that the House received from its amendments made to the bill and the amendments appear as the amendments appear in the re-revised bill and that the following amendments are substituted therefore. 2, that under the authority granted the committee to consider matters not listed between the two houses, the following amendments are recommended. Respectfully submitted, Senate Committee, Senators Moreno, Chair, Senators Hansen, Senators Ranson, House Committee, Representative McCluskey, Chair, Representative Herod, and Representative Ransom.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend Senate Rule 26B to allow the Senate to vote on a conference committee report that is not referred to in the calendar, because this was not in the calendar, but we do need to approve this bill today. There's a deadline, and if we don't approve it, the state of Colorado will cease to exist.
The motion is to suspend Senate Rule 26B to allow the Senate to vote on a conference committee report that is not referred to in the calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Consideration of conference committee reports. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 205?
Senate Bill 205 by Senator Moreno and Representative McCluskey concerning the provision of payment of the expense of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, except as otherwise noted.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adopt the first report of the first conference committee on Senate Bill 205.
Is there any discussion? Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is the long bill, and as you recall, there were a number of amendments that were adopted both in the Senate and in the House that put the budget out of balance. As a result, the Joint Budget Committee then meets as a conference committee to consider all those different amendments and to ultimately recommend a conference committee report to our colleagues, and then for repassage of the long bill. There's a lot in this conference committee report, so I just want to take just a short time to make sure you all understand what is in this conference committee report. The Joint Budget Committee started with the Senate version of the bill because, congratulations, colleagues, our version was cheaper than the version that was passed by the House. So that is the version that we started with. In the conference committee report, you will not see amendments that were added in the Senate if the conference committee recommends that they be retained. So those are, I just want to review them with you. The $10 million for special education is retained. The $2 million for the Disability Benefits Application Assistance Program in the Department of Human Services is retained. The $215,000 general fund for the Consumer Credit Unit in the Department of Law is retained. And lastly, the $650,000 appropriation for the Civil Rights Division to address their backlog of cases is retained. Now, colleagues, we also consider motions or amendments that were within the scope of both chambers. So there was an amendment added regarding the School Bullying Prevention and Education Grant Program for $2 million. $1 million of those dollars has been retained because last year they sustained a $1 million reduction. We have set out a priority to restore reductions in this budget that were made last year. So we instituted or built in $1 million for that program. For the suicide prevention program, we retained $250,000 increase, as was an amendment by the Senate. The other things deal with some federal funds for TANF that was added in the House. This is not one that we addressed in the Senate, but we did build that amendment in. One regarding the implementation of Proposition 114 and not relying on Hunter fees to fund the wolf reintroduction program, and instead we are building in $1.1 million general fund for that. Some of the other things that I think are worth highlighting, colleagues, Chief Educational Equity Officer in the Department of Higher Education has been retained at a lesser amount because the department is using some of their existing appropriation. The funding for the Tony Gramscis Youth Services Program is retained at a lesser dollar amount because they are getting a larger than expected allocation of tobacco master settlement revenue. We also retained an amendment regarding housing and those that are incapable of demonstrating lawful presence. We retained an amendment that is around body-worn camera grant program, and added $1 million on top of the existing $3 million appropriation in the long bill. And then, colleagues, some of the things that went outside the scope of differences between the two houses, there were some technical adjustments made to the Office of Information Technology, and there was also some additional revenue from the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement that I mentioned, as well as the additional funds for the instant criminal background check cash fund to make sure that they can keep up with the increases that they are experiencing. Now, colleagues, the question is, how did we pay for all of this, right? Because the Senate added, or cumulatively between the Senate and the House, it's about $6 million more than what we balanced to. So a couple of things happened. One, the placeholder for current legislation, $50 million for the bills making their way through, is reduced to $48 million. So we got $2 million from that allocation. The rest is largely coming from the general fund reserve, and we will have to make those adjustments. That bill is being held in the House. So colleagues, this is just a little bit of the work that the Joint Budget Committee did in conference. I really do believe, colleagues, that we adhered to the intent of both the House and the Senate in adding many of these amendments. We were able to incorporate the broad majority of those. And so I encourage your support for the adoption of the Conference Committee report.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to say thank you to the members of the Joint Budget Committee in both chambers, the Conference Committee. We were aware that there was a rather vigorous debate occurring over in the House chamber earlier today over this Conference Committee. I think it's true that other than our member of the Joint Budget Committee from the minority, we were unaware that we were going to have this discussion, waive the rule, and do this right now. I wasn't even aware that the House had completed, so the first question I had was, have they completed? And the Secretary has said yes. Okay. Mr. President, I would ask for Senatorial 5, a brief recess, just so our caucus can talk with our member of the Joint Budget Committee. I thank the chair of the committee very much, my friend, for that review. But as a member of the minority who got both of the things that I wanted, thank you. Not everyone in our caucus sees it that way. So, Mr. President, if you would be willing just to give us a Senatorial 5 so that we can speak with the good senator from Carbondale and just understand what's here, what isn't, I would be grateful, Mr. President.
For the record, members, the message from the House was read earlier into the record. The Senate will stand in a brief recess. The Senate will come back to order. Further discussion. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we reject the first report of the first conference committee, and I'll tell you why. This chamber voted with almost 2/3 of a vote to increase the general fund budget for body cams from $3 million to $6 million. What I heard one of the sponsors say, and I think it was deceptive or political doublespeak, said, well, we added $1 million to the body cam program. No, actually, $2 million were removed from the body cam program, which this chamber, again, with I believe it was 22 members, voted for, 6 Democrats and all Republicans, and then the House voted for, with 10 Democrats. There was a bipartisan amendment because you know why? Because there are bills out there forcing law enforcement agencies to buy body cameras. There are bills out there currently that want to move up to date when they have to have them. So we're mandating law enforcement to get body cams, but we're not willing to put our mouth where our money is, or our money where our mouth is. Either one. So, you know, what I find really disturbing is that 3 people can dictate to this chamber when almost 2/3 voted for an amendment. 3 people, 3 people out of 22 out of the 35 here can dictate to the rest of us. 3 people can dictate to the House as well. You know, I kind of equate this to this movement about the Electoral College, 1 man, 1 woman, 1 vote kind of a thing. Why don't we apply that here? Why do we let 3 people dictate to us what we're going to pass in our budget? And I also heard that the conference committee pretty much adhered to the intent of this body. Again, not true at all. The intent of this body, of this chamber, was to give $6 million for law enforcement to buy the body cams that we mandated. So I'd ask that we reject the first report of the first committee, because we all know that this body cam program is probably going to cost more than $10 million to adequately fund law enforcement through this state. So again, I ask that we reject this report.
Senator Cook, are you going to ask for a second conference?
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we reject this, I would ask for a second conference committee.
Further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I stand in support of my colleague from Weld County and his efforts to perhaps have the JBC take another look at this. I've got 3 issues. We had 3 amendments that I proposed that we all passed out of the Senate. Of those, 2 of them I'm grateful are still here to some extent, but colleagues, these are the issues that especially in light of the tragedies in Boulder and in Douglas County that we've experienced over years. We're really trying to get at mental health screenings, trying to get at anti-bullying. We're trying to help as best we can with suicide prevention. And to see the amounts in those amendments get literally cut in half, colleagues, and one disappear completely, the one for mental health screenings, and I understand from my colleague on the JVC that there might be a workaround on that. Would really like to hear from the JVC why we felt that these are no longer as important as they were when they left this chamber.
Senator Fields, followed by Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, I'm here to address the whole issue as it relates to the senator that was up here from Weld County, as it relates to body-worn cameras that police officers are wearing. It's not mandated. It's the law. And it's been the law in the state of Colorado for some time. So to give the impression that we're mandating it is just a false narrative. Perhaps we need more funding, but it's not a mandate. In light of the high-profile incidents that we've seen in Ferguson and with the murder of George Floyd and other police incidents that we've seen take place across the nation, we've seen law enforcement agencies across our nation and in the state, specifically in Denver and Aurora, the officers have been wearing body-worn cameras for a long time. And what we did with Senate Bill 217, we expanded it to make sure that it has a broader breadth and depth as it relates to all law enforcement having body-worn cameras. I don't know if you want to call a law a mandate, but a law is the law. Perhaps we need additional funding. I support whatever it takes to make sure that our law enforcement is adequately funded, but it's the right thing to do for law enforcement to have a body-worn camera. It gives us a different narrative when situations go down. When George Floyd was murdered, the police came out and said that his heart was too big, that he was under the influence of drugs. So what you have with these body-worn cameras, which is the law for them to wear in certain police districts, it's not a mandate because most police chiefs believe that they protect them and it protects the citizen. So I just think that we need to be careful about the words that we use, because it's really not a mandate the way I look at it. It's the law, just like we have traffic stops. It's not a mandate. If the light is red, you stop. So that's just my opinion on it, Mr. President and Senator from Weld County. I think that we should give law enforcement the tools that they need to keep our community safe.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess my response is tomato, tomato. A mandate, a law, it's the same thing. We passed a law that mandated law enforcement to buy body cams. Yes, it's the law, but we mandated it through the law. And then to say that we've had it for a long time, it's the law for a long time, it's just not accurate. 217 was passed last year. And law enforcement was given to 2023 to comply. But now there's a bill to move that up to 2022. So if we're going to mandate or pass a law, again, that tells law enforcement they have to spend money, then we need to be able to assist them in that. And I heard the argument in the JBC conference committee was, oh, well, problem is Denver and Aurora will just gobble up all that money. Well, we don't know that. If we've heard Denver is already buying some, probably Aurora is buying some. But what about Arapahoe County and Jefferson County that need the funds? What about Larimer County that need the funds? Because those larger agencies, it's going to cost almost $2 million, if not more, for those large agencies. So let's do the right thing here and support our law enforcement, because we passed a law to tell them they had to buy and wear body cams. So again, I renew my motion to reject.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I voted for the budget, and I appreciate the good work that the JBC does, because I know you work really hard and you have to make a lot of tough decisions. I'm distressed a little bit. I know the good senator from Arvada, Senator Zinzinger, and I, we worked very hard to get just a small amount for our good EMT friends. You know, we are up here talking about the police and the other first responders that go out and have to make these, go to these difficult situations, but it's our EMTs that are out there that are actually saving their lives, whether it's in a difficult situation, whether it was in Boulder or wherever it may be, or you're in you've been in a severe accident out in the middle of nowhere on the highways. It's the EMTs that are actually saving your lives, whether they have body cameras or not. And so I would just like to have an explanation. It was not part and parcel of of what went on, but I would love to know why just a mere $270,000, which is huge for the EMTs, why that would be cut out when we can find millions and millions for every other thing. And I'm not knocking those either, but $270,000 out of a budget that's $34 billion plus or minus $1 billion. I'd just like to have more of an explanation. Thank you very much.
Senator Kirkmeyer, followed by Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the motion, especially related to the body cameras. I will just tell you that I know for certain that in Weld County, we spent nearly $500,000 after we had already had body cams, but had to spend another $500,000 to get body cams. But I would just point out to you, there are 64 counties, 269 municipalities. Of those 269 municipalities, 227 of them have less than 11,000 in population in their municipalities. Anywhere from 25 to 40% of their budget is spent on the police department. There are several municipalities that can't afford their police departments. So I don't know where the number came from that we need $10 million for body cams. I would tell you that it's probably more than that. And whether you pass the law and we want to call it a law or we want to call it a mandate, it doesn't matter. It's a have to have. They got to do it, and they can't afford it. So the fact of the matter, I'm with the other good senator from Weld County, from Greeley. The fact of the matter that 3 people can say that we can't even start getting close to what's needed for these police departments to get their body cams that we told them they had to have, I think is unfortunate, and I think it's ridiculous. So, you all caused it. We've got several of our municipalities that can't afford it. They have to have police departments. We need to fund it. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. And to my good friend and colleague from Weld County, I like green tomatoes, okay? And I like them fried. So anyway, I was just looking at some statistics as it relates to body-worn cameras, and I do believe that we should fund what law enforcement needs, but it looks like Obama implemented a grant program which was in 2015 as it relates to establishing body-worn cameras, and it was supported in Colorado. It was supported by county sheriffs of Colorado, City and County of Denver, the City of Fort Collins, the Colorado Municipal League, the Colorado Criminal Defense Bar Association, the Colorado Bar Association, and it goes on and on. Colorado District Attorneys Association. It goes on to talk about Denver, Fort Collins, and Arapahoe County, all supporting body-worn cameras. And this was in 2015. And during that time, there was a grant program that was available that made it possible for many of these law enforcement agencies to be able to purchase these equipment. So I just wanted to just share that these cameras are used to drive some of the complaints that we see in policing and to increase the trust as it relates to community policing. And so whatever we need to fund law enforcement and to ensure that they have the equipment that they need to record incidents is what I'm supporting. Thank you.
Senator Cook, followed by Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. And to my good friend from Aurora, I don't like tomatoes. I pick them off my hamburgers. But, you know, the Obama administration, I don't believe we ever saw any of that money. And not only that, you know, in 2015, I ran or helped run a body cam bill because of all the law enforcement bills that were coming out. And we established a fund for agencies to get body cams in 2015. Guess what we never did? We never funded it. That fund had $0 in it since 2015, and this is the first time that we put $3 million originally, and then almost 2/3 of this body voted to put another $3 million into it so we can get a good start on helping out these agencies. So we had $6 million for the first time ever in that 2015 fund, and then because of 3 people, it got dropped. It lost $2 million. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. And here's what I have to say about grants for small municipalities and small counties. I don't think y'all realize a lot of these small municipalities, they don't even have a town manager. They have a contract town attorney who only comes when they absolutely have to need them because they can't afford to pay them. They have to have a clerk. Doesn't mean their clerk has to be full-time. So they don't really have any resources, any staff to go after the grants, much less have anybody who can administer that grant. And there's usually a lot of strings attached to those grants. So again, 227 municipalities have less than 11,000 in population. We told them they had to have body cams on their police. Even if they only have 2 or 3 people in their police department, that's an expense that they weren't planning on budgeting for, they don't have the money for, and we need to fund it. Thank you.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of my friend, the Assistant Minority Leader's motion to reject the committee report, and primarily over the body cam funding. I'm frustrated because I live in a fairly populated part of the state, Douglas County. I'm frustrated because my county is very often ranked among the highest per capita income in the nation. I'm frustrated not because the other $2 million isn't there to help pay for body cameras where I live, or here in Denver, or in Aurora. I'm frustrated because I've been out in eastern Colorado in a place called Yuma County. I'm frustrated because the last time I was out there hunting, I had the opportunity to read a local newspaper. I'm frustrated because that newspaper explained that on average in Yuma County, huge county, geographically a large place, I'm frustrated because in Yuma County, that article explained that on average there's one sheriff deputy on duty patrolling. And if an emergency happens on the other end of the county, it might take 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. I'm frustrated because out there in rural Colorado in Yuma County, there isn't a police department that shows up. It's the sheriff's department. And based on that news article there in Yuma County, I learned that there might be one deputy in one car to come help. Now, if you need help in Yuma County and you're in one end of the county, and then 5 or 10 minutes later somebody else needs help in the other end of the county, and you only have one, where is he or she going to go? Probably the first one to call. Now, is that about body cameras? No, not necessarily. But when you're dealing with a sheriff's department that can only afford, based on the population and the taxation that exists in that county, can only afford to have one deputy on patrol, you think they might welcome our help in paying for body cameras that they are required by law, that means mandated, to have on that deputy? Now, gosh, it's only one. Can't they afford one? Yuma's not the only example, members. Now, I live in a populated area called Douglas County. Our sheriff's department is probably bigger than most of the high schools, and my friend from Senate District 1 out in Sterling, I bet my sheriff's department is bigger than most of the classes in the high schools in his district. Hundreds of people work in my sheriff's department, and my son's one of them. We get funding out of the Park Meadow Mall for our sheriff's department, our justice center. We have revenue sources to help pay for that. So I'm not here to ask you to support the extra $2 million for body cameras for Denver and Aurora. I understand a representative from Denver who serves on the JBC voted to take out those $2 million, and she was a loud voice to, we don't need to put another $3 million. Okay. I count her as a friend on some issues. I count her as a friend. We agree on some issues. On this one, we disagree. This isn't for me about Denver and Aurora. If their officers are wearing body cameras now, okay. If the officers down in the Douglas County Sheriff's Department are wearing body cameras, okay. Believe me, if there's money there to help pay for those, we'll take it. But I want to stand here as a person who doesn't live in Weld County or Yuma and say, you know, I've heard those voices. I've been there. And you got to listen really carefully because they don't have hundreds of people working in their sheriff's department. They have one deputy on duty at any given time. And I look to my friend from Sterling, my friend from Alamosa, my good friend here on the camera, on remote from Montrose. There are rural parts of this state, huge geographic areas, where there just aren't a lot of people. We see that in the representation here in the Senate chamber. When it comes down to dollars to pay for body cameras for law enforcement, whether they're sheriff's office or a police department, we've told them, you've got to do this. And for some of those communities, they don't have the dollars to do it. Now, I understand from my friend from Weld County, the former sheriff, that $3 million plus $3 million, $6 million, that still wouldn't be enough, but 3 plus 1, that's 4. Not enough. So if there's a way that we could reconsider this, we reject this report, and I assure the gentleman from JBC, I don't mean any criticism. We just have a disagreement here. And we are now in a place, a year ago, I don't think I could have stood here and made this plea, because we thought we had to cut $3.5 billion out of our projected tax revenue. But now we realize that cut should have been about $500 million. Now we're sitting on more money than I ever could have imagined that we would have, and we're arguing over $2 million for something that we did in a bipartisan way last year with Senate Bill 217. Law enforcement, you got to have body cameras. We should pay for those. So I'm not trying to rock the world. I'm not trying to reject all the great work on the budget. But if there was a way to turn this around and say, let's go back and find those other $2 million for body cams, I'm all for that. Please support the motion to reject the first conference committee report. Let's ask the members of the Joint Budget Committee to go have another tough conversation. And to my friend from Denver who serves on the Joint Budget Committee over in the House, I understand your community's different than mine. I understand. But let's think about all those other counties out there. Let's think about the other 61 counties after Denver and Arapahoe and Douglas, maybe Jeffco. But when we take out that huge population center right here in the Metro Denver area, let's think about those other 60 or so counties, and let's make sure we're doing the right thing. We can find this money. The majority leader and I, a few years ago, we dug our heels in and we found, I think, $300 million for transportation. We can find two. Please support the motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to put some reality to those numbers about those counties. So just so you all understand, 47 counties, less than 30,000 population. So that's basically 2/3 of our counties. Half of our counties, 32 of our counties, have less than 15,000 in population. The budget in Denver, for the city and county of Denver, is 10-fold, 20-fold what their budgets are. Again, counties suffer from a whole bunch of other mandates that the state puts on them. I just want you to think alone about the human services programs that are mandated that the counties have to fund. And while they're busy trying to figure out how to fund human services or their health departments or the other numerous mandates that you put on counties, they now got to figure out how to put somewhere in their budget for body cams. They're trying to figure out how to buy radios. And we can't come up with $3 million for a mandate that we put on counties and municipalities. Again, I ask for your support for this motion. Thank you.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I guess it's time for a little response from the JBC members. Just to address a couple of issues, I'm going to start with the good senator from Douglas County, so passionate about screening, mental health screening. I just want to assure you that our discussions, JBC discussions, are no less passionate about the need for mental health screenings. What we looked at in this case was the 1258 stimulus bill, $9 million, directly paralleling that need. So we felt that, that was the approach we should take. But given that we're all very passionate about the future of this, we should recognize that that is stimulus spending. So, in next year's budget and the year after, we need to think about what the longer term need is for that line item, and we will be doing so. But I just couldn't let this go without thanking the senator for bringing that, and all of you, those of you who did, for voting for it, because we have in our discussions shared your passion. And just to follow on to that comment, there was not a single one of these amendments that we didn't. I believe we totally respected the senators and even the representatives who ran those amendments, and they were totally discussed. I don't believe there's a single issue or a single item on this list that won't be funded. It might not be funded in this budget, it might not be funded in this amendment, but going forward, like just even body cameras, that won't all come in 1 year. Mental health screening won't all come in 1 year. And we do this every year, and we do it on priorities reflecting your interest in what the people want through that channel. So, I'd like for us to think about most of these things in the longer term sense, whether it's mental health screening, whether it's EMT, which we know is a need. We need to quantify it and move forward with it. So we have the long bill, but now we have state stimulus. We talked about, in many of these things, which ones would fit state stimulus. And we even made a list of things that came up that we felt would fit under the ARP funding, the new federal funding, which we do not have detailed guidance on. And then we know that every year we reconsider priorities. So I just would like for you to think in the context of we will fund every one of these issues to the extent that the need is there and it's documented as we go forward. I believe we can, in advocating for the JBC, we can approve this conference committee. We can find ways to fund those items going forward. I assure you we will do so. And we can still vote for the budget.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to add my voice to those who asked for the rejection of the first report on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 21-205. As you may recall, I was the lone no vote on the budget as it left, and I commended to JBC the 3 members of our body who worked on our behalf for the hard work they put in and the budget they turned in. And at the same time, I said I'm going to vote no to preserve the voice of dissent as we tune up, tweak, and improve our policy conversation. Because after all, money is policy. Very little happens but for money. And where we choose to spend our money is an indication of where we have set our priorities. Now, we just heard a good discussion around body cameras, and I believe that we in fact do need to fund those appropriately. Body cameras are something that captures an artifact of something that has already happened. Too frequently, we only look at it when it's tragic. The prior speaker acknowledged that we're spending some money on mental health, but I will point out that this conference committee report comes back and cuts dramatically by half. 2 elements where we came to bipartisan agreement had Republicans and Democrats on mental health bills. $2 million for bullying prevention, now $1 million, cut in half. $500,000 on suicide prevention, now $250,000, cut in half. You heard the previous speaker say that the senator from Douglas County is passionate about this subject. I will tell you, my entire caucus is passionate about this idea of mental health. It's something we need to do, and I believe the entire chamber needs to be focused on it. Now, you're hearing from the folks on the JBC a correct statement that we're dealing with this in ways with some of the state stimulus dollars. One and done money. There's a difference between $2 million that was agreed upon in a bipartisan way for student mental health screenings in the effort to prevent suicide and stay off of a body cam, perhaps, record later. There's a difference between that $2 million that is part of a budget that cycles year after year after year, and a one and done bill that says we've got some extra money here today, let's put that on this issue. We need to be focused, not just today, but always on mental health. It's a critical element to so many of the most challenging policy conversations we have. So, in addition to saying, yes, we should fund those body cameras in the way we said we would, I say we also should reject this report because it says, as a matter of priority, maybe we're not quite so focused on permanent, ongoing funding for student mental health screening and potential suicide prevention. I think that that needs to be something that we say no. It's not just one and done. It's not just we had some extra money, so we're going to put dollars on it now. That should be something that is part of the ongoing annual appropriation as a statement of priorities. So I end as I began, in dissent, not because I object, but because I want to make it better. This particular conference committee report, I do urge us to reject. Let's send it back and work on it again. And when we work on it again, I would argue, let's elevate just a little bit in that conversation the priority of ongoing funding for mental health. That would be my ask. I ask it, I hope, in a passionate but friendly tone. Mr. President, thanks for your attention. Colleagues, we can do better. Let's kick this back and look at it one more time. Thank you.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, I'm going to encourage you to vote no on the motion to reject the conference committee report and instead vote yes on the motion to adopt the conference committee report. This discussion reminds me of that Rolling Stone song. You can't always get what you want. Welcome to the budgeting process, colleagues. Trade-offs are made. Not everyone gets what they want through the budgeting process. That is how it is designed. You don't charge us with funding every single one of your amendments in full. You charge us with balancing the budget. That is our job. And it is a hard job, and we have to balance priorities. We have to make hard decisions. I just want to acknowledge the request, the original budget request from the Colorado Counties Incorporated for body cams. Guess how much it was, colleagues? The request was for $3 million. They're getting $4 million. Maybe it's not as much as the amount that was identified in the House and the Senate, but to go from $0 to $4 million in one budget year, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. We are not in the business of just funding things without evaluation, without making sure that that is what's needed, that we constantly go back and review how are those dollars being allocated? What were they used for? That is our job as a Joint Budget Committee and a General Assembly. So I just want to make sure that, and last point on this issue, that requirement doesn't go into effect until fiscal year 2023, 2024. We have a whole nother budget cycle, whole nother fiscal year to go through where we can do exactly that review, and if it's not enough, we can add more money next year. It's how the budgeting process works. So I encourage you to vote no on the motion to reject and a yes on the motion to adopt.
The pending motion before the body is the motion to reject the first report on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 205. And I don't have to, Are there any no votes? Senators Rankin, Hawkes Lewis, Zenzinger, Pedersen, Winter, Gonzalez, Buckner, Lee, Kolker, Story, Coleman, Hansen, Danielson,
Imagine that.
Bridges, Rodriguez, Majority Leader. Moreno. Please have the President. With 16 aye votes, 18 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, that motion is lost. The current motion before the body is for the adoption of the first report on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 205. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Cook, Gardner, Senator Cook, I have you recorded. Liston, the Minority Leader. Heisey, Sonnenberg, Smallwood, Woodward, Heisey, with 25 ayes, 9 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, that motion is adopted. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 205 as amended.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 205. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Cook, Gardner, Sonnenberg, Heisey, Woodward, with 28 ayes, 6 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 205 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Bridges. Message from the House.
April 30th, Mr. President, the House has voted to grant the House conferees on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 77 to go beyond the scope of the difference between the two houses.
Announcements. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, colleagues. I just wanted to give you a quick update to those of you who participated in Denim Day to raise awareness around, a life free of sexual violence. And thank you for participating in Denim Day. And I wanted to let you know that collectively the House and the Senate raised about $660, which is the largest sum we've ever raised. And I believe it put CICASA over their goal of raising $10,000 on that day to fight sexual assault. So thank you very much. You have done something good to stand up for survivors across Colorado, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just want to say thank you so much for wearing your college gear today. Today is Decision Day. So in Colorado, we honor the opportunities in all pathways, whether students attend a university, a community college, a private occupational school, apprenticeships, or decide to serve in the military. This is why we're celebrating Decision Day today. The Colorado pandemic has caused uncertainty for many students who are unsure of what option to choose after high school. Some may be considering taking a gap year or getting a job right after graduation because of the pandemic. But we want to encourage students to stay the course, as your choice for post-secondary education is a really vital one. In fact, the Colorado Talent Pipeline report identifies that 88% of top-tier jobs require some sort of credential beyond high school. And considering that just over 57% of high school students go on to college, we need to work together to encourage all of our students to pick a path, stay the course, and complete their post-secondary education. High school seniors have spent the last several months researching their options, applying to programs, and filing the FAFSA and the CAFSPA. And Decision Day celebrates a culmination of their hard work, and it recognizes the achievement of all students. So today, we join the Colorado Department of Higher Education to celebrate Colorado's high school graduating class of 2021, and we wish you all good luck on your journey, and thank you everyone for participating in this Decision Day.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Do I have to ask for a point of privilege? It's not really an announcement. I want to speak to Decision Day.
I would ask for a moment of personal privilege.
May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to add on to that, I wore my alma mater shirt. I went to the University of Colorado, and I just want to point out that some pretty recognizable people decided to go to the University of Colorado, and they include such notables as 2 governors of Colorado, Governor Ralph Carr, Governor Roy Romer. We also had U.S. Senator Hank Brown. He also was the president of the University of Colorado. We had one of the 24 astronauts who made it to the moon, Jet Swigert. Woohoo! And we also had best-selling recording artist from 1939 to 1942, Glenn Miller. And then there was that professional football player who just happened to wander his way in to be the Justice of the Supreme Court for the United States, Byron Whizzer White. So I'm very proud of my alum. And, okay. And the Senate Majority Leader, and yours truly, the good senator from Boulder, the good senator from Weld County, graduated from the University of Colorado. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out, because we were talking about this morning, but I just want to remind you all, for those of you who like to attend University of Colorado football games, we were the 1990 national football champions. Thank you.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. And there's one more that the good senator from Weld County forgot. My 10-year-old daughter's favorite, CU alum, former Denver Bronco, current Houston Texans, Philip Lindsay.
Further announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
We didn't introduce anything. We have bills to. Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we do have some House bills to read across. You do not need to be here. Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 12:30 p.m. today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and the Senate will stand in a recess until 12:30 today.